If you're about to graduate audio school and step into the real world and you've been wondering what it takes to build a lasting career in a competitive industry, this video is exactly what you need. Hey friend, welcome back to Mastering Post-Production Sound. My name is Joel. I'm an Emmy-nominated sound re-recording mixer, posting weekly videos to empower you to navigate, believe, and thrive in the post-production sound industry. Today, I've got something very special. I recently had the amazing opportunity to return to my alma mater, Azusa Pacific University, thanks to my good friend, Ibut Cervantes, who runs the recording arts program there. I had the privilege to sit down with a group of very talented students in their final year preparing to step into the real world. We got to have a very candid and honest conversation about career trajectories, a little bit about my personal journey, and what it takes to build a lasting career, not just in the post-production sound industry, but in any industry. In this episode, I'm going to be opening up a little bit more personally, sharing some more of my backstory, and even giving a little glimpse into my own personal faith, which has played a major role in shaping my career. So if you're a soon-to-be graduate or you're feeling a little uncertain about what's next in your career, this video is for you. It's packed with insight, real talk, and actionable advice on taking those next steps. So without further ado, pull up a seat and let's dive in.
All right, welcome everybody. We still have a couple people coming in. Today we have the honor of having Mr. Joel Catalan. You go Joel D. Catalan?
Joel D. Catalan.
D. Catalan.
My father shares the same name, that's why, so yeah.
Yeah, so Joel is an alum from here. He was reminding himself of sitting here and playing in the big band, and he'll tell us all about his experience of where he has ended up and his whole trajectory. So please welcome. So, Joel, thanks for being here, Joel.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just take it for as far back as we can.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up here, Southern California. For me, it was always music. Like at 13, I picked up the saxophone, and back when, you know, my friends were listening to Run DMC, I was listening to Duke Ellington, you know, Benny Goodman, things like that on my dad's record, and so I caught the bug early.
So was your dad a musician?
So my dad played the saxophone, yes,
Yeah.
so in high school, and just novice, you know, as an adult, so yeah, that's where I got
How much of that you think influenced you into trying to be a musician?
Oh, a ton. I mean,
Right.
I remember as a kid, probably 8 years old, I would hear my dad playing in his room, and I would be like, Mom, do you think he'll let me like learn or try? And I'll never forget, like, he's like, oh, you want to play? Like, come on, let's put the reed together. Let's just blow on the mouthpiece, you know, very simple kind of stuff. So yeah, it definitely had an influence.
And the rest of your family, anybody else musicians?
Yeah, musicians. Yeah, music was pretty strong, you know, from my grandmother playing the piano, grandfather, to my siblings. You know, I had a brother who, you know, he's a well-established arranger, orchestrator, musician as well. We got to play together and tour together. So
He went here as well, right? For a little
yeah. He went. We both did the Citrus APU thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And your other brother, lighting person?
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, my brother Michael. He was totally into the arts, technical directing. Now he's like technical directing and managing a Broadway and off-Broadway theater in New York. So he's totally into the arts and everything.
So whole family's
The whole
in.
family's in.
Everybody's
We're all
in.
Yeah.
So Joel and I are good friends, so that's how I'm triggering some of these questions. You know, I know some behind the scenes stuff. So you end up here, or actually Citrus
Citrus,
first,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's where we met.
That's where we met. Yeah, prior to that, though, I was in a ska band back when ska was like a thing, and I toured.
What was the name of that band?
That was called Big Dog Small Fence. You're gonna all go look at it. It wasn't big, but we had one record, and it was like I was like 16 to 18, you know, traveling, touring. You went to Japan and everything, and that was a lot of fun. But I knew of all the people in that band that music was going to be my future. And so I quit the band. I said, I'm going to go to Citrus College and pick up, you know, doing some music stuff like that. Question?
Where did you meet that band?
Where did I meet that?
Through Citrus?
No. So gosh, that was like a youth group at a church.
Oh.
When I was like, they're like, you play the saxophone? Like, come on, man, you know, and I was the youngest, and we got to play a bunch of festivals and I mean, I was a kid traveling.
Give us the name again of the band.
Big Dog Small Fence.
Big Dog or Pig?
Big
Dog Small
Fence.
Fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was fun. It was fun, you know. But that's kind of what started, and I knew I'd go to Citrus because I wanted to do jazz. I love jazz, so that's where I think then
That's
our
where we met,
paths
yeah.
crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were in big band together. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did that for a while. Then you ended up here.
Then I did, yeah. I ended up over here, you know. I kind of took the long route over there, you know, because you're all about music, so you're practicing for hours, you're establishing that, you know. I wanted to be a session player, we were doing session playing, we were gigging all the time. They needed some woodwind players over here. They wanted to really take their jazz program to another level, so a lot of us came over. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up over here in 2003, 4, 5, I graduated in 06. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the math.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you graduated from here.
Mhm.
What's your first gig out of here?
Well, at the time, I think it was here that I discovered like being able to create music and record it. So I got my first laptop and DAW here, like Logic. You had to do Logic and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like a new world. So I started getting into music composing while I was here. So I was writing, I was performing, I was gigging, I was kind of doing all the things. And at the same time, a friend of mine, he was a director, he said, "Hey Joel, do you know how to do some sound design?" And I just said, "Yeah, sure." I had never heard the term before. And he's like, "I just need some lightning, some thunder, you know, things like this for his film." And I was already writing music too, so I thought it couldn't be much different than composing. I'm just taking sounds. And so right after, I kind of just got the bug. I got the bug to score, I got the bug to do music for film, and I had students, I was gigging whenever I could. I got married my last year in college. So I was like, right after this, I was like, I gotta work, right? I gotta go out and try to make a living doing all these things. And so, I mean, by the time, I was working when I was my last year.
While you were still...
Yeah, because I was married, you know, and I was like, I gotta go and, you know, make a living. So there was like multiple things, you know. I think it was
It's never one gig.
It was never one thing. No.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go play this gig over here, and then I'm gonna go do this thing. I'm gonna record this. I'm gonna write this music. I'm gonna do this short film, and yeah, then I decided like, hey, I'm all in on the post sound stuff, and that's when I started from the ground up.
Started working on post, because I didn't really know Joel as an audio person
Nope.
at all.
Nope.
When we were,
No,
you know,
he was the audio person.
I was the audio
he was
guy,
the pro.
but he was the musician. You know,
Uh-huh.
I actually remember hiring you to do some arrangements on
we did.
a project.
Oh my gosh,
You remember that
yeah,
Charlie
yeah.
Chang thing?
The Charlie Chang thing, yes.
And I
Oh my
remember you
God.
wrote the strings,
That's
and they're
right.
beautiful, and I was
That's
like, oh,
right.
this guy's great. And I know your your brother
Yeah,
also did that stuff,
yeah,
but
yeah.
So we got to work a little bit, you know, before you became the
Yeah.
audio guy now
That's
that
true.
you are now.
That is true.
So let's fast forward just all the way to like
Yeah.
where you're at now, and then
Yes.
we'll reverse back.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
so what do you do now?
So yeah, now I'm what we call a sound re-recording mixer, and I'm a sound supervisor. So I mix sound for TV and film. You go to the theaters, you turn on a streaming show, you know, you hear the dialogue, the music, the sound effects. It's my responsibility to sit sort of like in a theater, you know, with surround sound, and sit at a console and take all those elements and balance them against each other with our filmmaker, with the director for a film, or showrunner for a TV show, and ultimately, in the end, what you hear is what we're responsible for.
And yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty
great.
cool. Yeah.
So what are some of the shows that you've been working on that you're proud of?
Well, I mean, I'll never forget. So 2013, there was a really cool series. It was called Cosmos, A Space-Time Odyssey, and it was a remake of the 1980s Carl Sagan series, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was the host. And that was a very special thing because I love the cosmos, and to be part of that, you know, it was also my first and only Emmy nomination, and so it was really like, whoa, I took my wife to the Emmys, like this was really cool. We lost, but it's okay. Everybody else won, you know, even Alan Silvestri, who was our composer, you know, had pictures of Alan, he's like, he won 2 Emmys that night for our show, and we lost, but it was okay, it was meant to be like that. But that was a really cool experience. But even working with Seth MacFarlane on The Orville, there's nobody like him. His ears are just crazy, like he's got ears like a hawk. But then even most recently, we've done we have an exciting series called Interior Chinatown that's coming out in November on Hulu, so mark your calendars, check it out.
What is that series about?
So that series is based on a book that came out in 2020 by Charles Yu. It was a real hit. Basically, it takes our main character, Willis Wu, is a marginalized Chinese American trying to find his way in his story. It's sort of like he's sort of like a background character in a show. If you can kind of think, I think like I don't know if you saw what's that movie? Ryan Reynolds. He was like an NPC. He was in the back. Free Guy. So I think of like Free Guy and Law and Order sort of come together, and it's really fascinating. And I think people are really it's gonna have a lot of buzz. Disney and Hulu will be behind it 100%. But it's very exciting. Yeah.
So your role is to take all the sounds that get recorded and placed, and then you put them together. You mix them, right?
Yes.
And are you part of a team, or is it all by yourself?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So with any kind of show or film, you're going to have a sound crew. And that sound crew is going to consist of, a re-recording mixer, which I do, take all the elements, a couple sound editors, a dialogue editor who's responsible for taking all the dialogue that's assembled for the film or TV show and making sure it's in sync, making sure the right takes are there. If something's bad, they'll replace it, flag any sections for ADR to go and re-record with the talent. You're going to have a sound effects editor who's going to be your sound designer. They're going to make sure they cut all your effects, backgrounds. You'll have a Foley team consisting of a Foley artist and someone who's actually performing the Foley and someone who's recording it and editing it. And then you have the sound supervisor, who's basically sort of like the boss of the whole sound crew, kind of just the captain, making sure, hey, dialogue's good, hey, sound effects are good, mixers, what do you need? Okay, and then we'll usually have a music editor. And the music editors, they're part of the team, but they're not directly under our
scope.
Yeah, scope. They're really an advocate for the composer. They're there to make sure that all the cues are in the right proper position, and then if anything needs to be edited, or the director or showrunner's like, hey, let's try this, I don't know about this cue, they'll go in there, re-edit, and re-deliver to the mixer. So,
and they want the music loud.
They want their music loud. Hey, let's go for it. We love music, so yes, they want the music loud. Yes,
that is part of the game.
That's part of the game. It's listening to your client saying, well, what? Okay, you want that loud? Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Can't hear the dialogue now.
Yeah. But I mean, it's funny, but at the same time, it does bring an interesting thing, because there are dynamics there that you have 100%. To deal with, right? I mean, the showrunner, who's your boss, right? The showrunner, or the supervisor, or the music guy. So you have to create, an atmosphere where people trust you. 100%. You can do the best thing 100%. For the film, right?
Yes,
ultimately,
yes.
That's the right way.
Yeah, but it's like the 80-20 rule, right? It's like 80% of what I do really is not the technical or creative part. It's the clients. It's the people behind me who's sitting, saying, "Hey, Joel, I can't really hear that line. Can you lower that? Or I don't know about that sound. Do we have something else that we can try?" Yeah, no problem. Or even when you have I worked with a filmmaker who will remain unnamed, who was going through some real personal stuff, and we knew that he was coming in and it was not going to be pretty. You just have to manage that personality because they're the boss. And so much, it's 20%, really. 20% is the technical stuff. And we have to know what we're doing, right? You have to be good at what you do.
That has to be 100%.
Yes,
right?
You definitely got to know everything. Yeah. Know your job, know how to do it. But really an underestimated skill set are the soft skills. It's the communication. It's the relationship. Are you a good person? Do you like to be around? Are you someone that people want to be around? Because I've worked with, and we all have in the industry, have worked with people that are difficult to work with. And they have a reputation. The post-production sound industry is a very small circle. And there's a lot of people who are trying to get in. And it's hard. But once you get your foot in, you're in. And then your reputation precedes you. People know about who you are. Oh, they're a jerk, or they're real difficult, But if you go out there and you bring compassion and kindness and generosity, you're really good at what you do, you're going to work. People are going to say, hey, that's literally how I got my first opportunity.
You're literally describing that you should be a good human, a good Christian.
Look at being, yes,
Yeah.
I have to remind myself,
Yeah.
what environment we're in. Like, what's APU's slogan? God first,
Yeah.
right? And so as a person of faith, right, I don't go out into the world and say, hey, it's all about, God and all these things. I let my character and integrity speak for my work. Yes, my work has to be at a high standard in the industry. Of course it does. That's that's just a given. Yeah. But being a kind person and remembering that as a person of faith, that I'm going out into the workplace and I'm really, number one, honoring God in the way I do this. Because I've tried it not doing it that way. I try to do it just my way, right? And it doesn't work. So, yes, there is an aspect to that as a faith believer that, I got someone looking out for me, and I got someone that I'm going up, and I have an excellence. I want to go and do my most excellent work out there and let everything else, be a good person, the golden rule, all those things.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so now we know what you do.
Yeah.
And you're part of a team, and it's, it's a whole
It wasn't
thing.
always like that, though.
Right.
Like in the beginning, I had to do all the things. I had to learn. Like on the small indie scale, you have to record the ADR. You have to cut the dialogue. You have to do all the jobs. At one point, I was doing everything. I was a one-stop shop. Oh, yeah, I'll compose the music for your film, and I'll do all your post-sound. That was my calling card in the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, but when you get to the highest level, you work in Hollywood, you realize you don't have to do that.
Right.
Get good at one thing,
Right.
Anyways.
So but let's take it back to doing that. You start,
yes.
you get out of school, you're married, you're hustling.
Yeah, I'm hustling.
You're just
Amen
taking
to that.
whatever you can.
Hustle.
You're doing all these projects. What was some of those early projects? And
Oh, they were terrible. They were so bad. So what I was doing was back then is I was on Craigslist trying to get every free gig I could, every low, no pay thing I could. When I realized I really wanted to do this, I sent emails, actually, remember Joe Burr?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of the guys we know, I knew nobody in the industry. I didn't know how to start. And one of our colleagues said, oh yeah, here's a list of numbers. And now that I think about it, I go back to that. It was I think it was just the back of a mix magazine or something with all the numbers. And I must have emailed everybody on that list, like 30, 40 people, right? None of them got back to me, right? People should not be emailing, but one person did. And she said, Joel, I get a lot of emails every day, but something about your email stood out, and I want to meet you. I don't have a job for you, but I want to meet you. And she was the first one in the actual industry that said, hey, come over here, let's talk. And she told me the thing about the circle being really small, but she said, do this, get a job at a small mom and pop post house. So you go and you learn about kind of everything, right? Entry level job. But remember that the minute you walk through that door, you are getting paid to learn. I never forgot that. And so I was driving a truck around Hollywood, picking up film, working in the tape vault, talking to editors, talking to telecine artists, colorists. They had a small little audio department upstairs, and I knew those are the guys I want to talk to. And so I did. And I made friends with them and talked, and I had a real guy who says, hey, don't listen to anybody else, come listen to me. And I was very fortunate. I forgot the question.
No, this is great. So, that's really how you started.
That's how it started, really, was,
and that connection.
That connection. And the whole entire time, still taking whatever gigs I could do on the side, working on the weekends. I was working the swing shift, 3 to like midnight, newly married. My wife was picking me up. We had one car, and then, one day in like January, February, I forget, well, I got to do the math. She comes, picks me and tells me, we're pregnant, we're going to have a baby too. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting this new career making nothing, and how am I going to do this? That changes your life. When you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a father. The hustle, the grind, taking the gigs, working on the weekends, I tell a lot of, I do some one-on-one coaching as well with people who want to do what I do. The number one thing I tell them is curiosity. You have to stay curious. Curiosity is what I taught myself Pro Tools. Like I taught myself how to do that. I didn't go, like, we had the intro to music, whatever, tech here. That was it. Everything else was because I didn't have money to pay people to mix my scores. So I had to learn myself. So curiosity led to hours and hours and hours of learning, making mistakes, you know, and taking, I got it.
It's a gig. It's a gig.
It's a gig. Take it. Take it. You're hired. So it was just every little thing I could do, and it just snowballed. You know, I'm working the entry-level job in Hollywood. I'm now using the studio upstairs because I built trust and credibility with the people because I was a hard worker. You know, I connected with the main engineer because he was a former trumpet player and he knew I was a former saxophone player. So we had connections, you know, and relationships. We'll get into relationships later, but relationships are everything in this industry. It's all about who you know, but more importantly, who knows you. And I learned that here in a room over there, taught by Dave Beatty.
Right.
So
So you're getting your feet wet. You're in there.
I'm in it.
Now you're in.
Yeah.
And that was the first kind of entry level position. Was
entry level.
You know, you're driving the truck, and now you're in the small little room, and you met the guy, and you guys are buddies. You create a relationship, right? How does that translate to your next? Thing?
The next thing. So. Basically, in that kind of timeline, within 12 months, I got hired at the sound facility that was connected with the company that I was, you know, basically working entry level because they knew, you want to do sound. So that's the thing. People are not going to know what you want to do, what your dreams and your goals are, unless you tell them. They can't read your brain. They can't read your mind. No one said, I want to make sure Joel has a job. No. One of the biggest things I've learned in this industry, in my life, is that you need to advocate for yourself. No one cares if you come out of school having a job. That's going to be on you. So I had to learn, keep pushing, keep moving forward. And that turned into working at a post-sound facility as a recordist, and that's another job. I completely forgot about the sound crew. A recordist, a mix tech, basically, is someone who is responsible for setting up the mix stage, making sure the mixers have everything they need. They'll take their templates, they'll import the Pro Tools sessions from the dialogue editor, from the music editor, from the effects editor, make sure the mix goes smoothly. And so they hired me to be that position, but I had never trained. I didn't know what that position was. So I learned on the job. But of course I had this knowledge. I stayed curious. You know, that curiosity, again, leads to growth, leads to learning. I had to learn. I usually bring it, but I didn't have today, but I have a notebook, a notepad. Make sure you have a notepad, make sure you have a notebook, because writing, this brain right here, sometimes has a tendency to forget. So when you make a mistake, write it down, learn from it. When you're trying to learn something new, write it down. That's what I did. I had a thing, I'm like, I don't know how to set this up, you know, from HD Cam SR day, this is back when we had tapes, you know, tapes for these masters. How do you set that up and take the Pro Tools, put the audio there? How do you set up the session? Okay, this mixer likes it like this one doesn't. Like, I had to learn all those things because now you're dealing with personalities too. And if you get on their bad, you know, the bad side, they're like, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. So I had to learn. I wanted to run away. I remember totally screwing up. I'm like, that's it, I'm done. Like, I can't believe I screwed up this bad. I'm out of here. I could go out that back door and never come back, and that's it. That's an option, right? And I said, please, what am I going to do? And I did it. I learned. You're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are not mistakes. They're really just, you know, lessons.
Learning opportunities.
They're learning opportunities. So yeah, so that mixed tech position then, because I showed up, because I learned, because I gained credibility amongst the mixers, when an opportunity came up for a sound facility, they needed to hire a mixer, they needed an effects mixer, my name was in the running because the mixers were like, we got to give this guy a chance. Like, he's mixing, he's doing everything he can on the side. And at the time, I got hired. I was the youngest mixer on staff there at the facility. And so that then took me to my next level. Like, I did it. I did that part, and now I'm mixing. And now they're putting me on shows. And, you know, got my first ABC Family show. That when ABC Family was a network. And so that led to just the next opportunity, you know, learning how to mix with somebody else. You know, it just was all on the job training, all of it.
And all of that, you mentioned something that I think is key, is building those relationships, right?
Yeah.
And it starts from when you're driving a truck to when you're mixing,
Yeah.
what you're mixing now,
Yeah.
it's all based off of those relationships that you have built,
100%,
right?
100%.
And so we know that that's important. We keep on talking about this, the relationship part,
Yeah.
but those relationships don't just happen. You have
No,
to create
you have to
them,
create 'em.
right?
100%.
And you have to maintain them.
100%.
And you have to like baby them sometimes and like
you nurture the
nurture
relationship.
is
You
really
do.
the way.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about that concept?
Yeah, so relationships, like I said, I alluded to earlier, they're everything in Hollywood, but they're everything in every industry. You know, it's one of the things I teach, or these 5 core principles. Number 1 is curiosity. Number 2 is hard work. You got to put your time in. Number 3, credibility, right? You got to earn it. You got to, you know, I say earn it, but these days people push back on earn it. So credibility really is you have to build credibility for yourself. Persistence. You have to persevere and understand there are ups and downs in your career. And then number 5 is relationships. Relationships are everything. And as you go out, and if you said it, you know, these are things you have to work on. So one of the things is, you know, I started being really active on LinkedIn, on social medias this last year. I get so many people that DM me on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm an aspiring post-sound professional, re-recording mixer. I want this, this, and this from you. And I'm like, okay, hold on. First of all, I don't know you from Adam, and you just don't, that's not the right way to do it. You don't go and slip into somebody's DMs and say, hey, do you have a job for me? Or, hey, can you look at my resume? Or, hey, can you give me pointers? No, I don't know him.
So tell us how should they do it?
Okay, so
How do you slip into DMs?
to foster a good relationship, this is what I preach. So you have to build an authentic relationship. And first of all, number 1, social media, you know, being what it is, can be a tool for you to create these relationships. So in whatever field you want to go into, you should be following those people that you want to work with. Those people that you look at, hey, 20 years from now, I want a career like that person. Make sure you're following their Instagram. Make sure you're following them on LinkedIn. Make sure you're following on, you know, whatever social media that's out there, right? Start by liking the post. Start by, if there's an opportunity, put a comment, right? You don't start by, hey, I'm so-and-so and I want a job. After you kind of establish, like, hey, that person's popping up. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I go to my Instagram, they're the same people who are popping up. So-and-so like your thing, so-and-so like your thing, so-and-so like your thing. After a time, you notice these people's names. Then, that's when you take the opportunity to say, hey, so-and-so, I'm a huge fan of your work. This and that, you know, I saw this, I heard this, you know, saw something. Flatter them. That's how you start. You flatter them and say, I'm a huge fan. I'm also, you know, an aspiring whatever, and I just wanted to say that it's inspiring. Thanks a lot.
Love your work.
Love your work. That's it.
Get out.
You don't say, exactly, get out. Now you get out. And shut it, slam that door.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you continue to like the post. When you see an opportunity, comment publicly on the post. You start creating for that creative individual a little bit of trust in the sense like, okay, this person's not crazy, okay? And first of all, you let off with flattery. You flatter them. That goes a long way. I cannot tell you how many people I have then replied to who, in their DM, did not ask for anything. So that's the number 1 key. You got to make sure you don't ask for anything. There will be an opportunity if you build that relationship properly to one day say, after you're playing the long game. This is not a short game. It is a long game, okay? You get the opportunity to say, hey, so-and-so, I saw that you were doing this thing. I would love to steal 20 minutes of your time. Would you be available for a Zoom next week?
Can I buy you coffee?
Can I buy you coffee? Can I take you out to lunch? Depending on, you know,
Yeah,
depending on
your level.
your level. And I went with the Zoom thing already because, you know, you
Yeah,
have people all across. I've spoken personally to people all over the world, literally, via Zoom, which that's one of the great things come out of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
But yes, if you're locally and you've created that kind of like that rapport, you go for it. And that's how it begins. Because you're never going to get a job. If I'm hiring for a team and I'm putting a team together for a new show or a film, I'm not going to hire you directly from a DM. Hey, look at my sound reel, hire me. No, I'm going to go to the people that are within my network that have established that I know they will get the work done. They're awesome people to work with, and I can rely on them, you know? So, yeah, that's how you slip into somebody's DMs eventually. You know, that's one way. That's what's worked for, you know, the countless, you know, people that I've coached, you know, and just what I see as I literally had someone say, hey, I just asked them like the other week, say, can I steal this DM and share a post about this? Because you just did it the best way ever. And he's like, yeah, sure. So I'm going to post that one day. But
What was in that? It was basically what we just
it was exactly what we discussed. Hey, your posts have been so inspiring. I want, you know, I'm on this road. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And then it was like followed up, you know, I'll have to go back and check. But I'm like, this is everything. Like, you just did it, man. Can I use this as an example? Because the way people do it these days is terrible. It's like an epidemic. The next generation of professionals in in music and sound and whatever, there's a sense of entitlement almost. And it's not their fault. I call it the TikTokification of career hunting, because we're sold an idea, a myth, a lie, that if you post a video, you can go viral overnight, you're a huge success, and now you're making millions of dollars. Does that happen? Has it happened? 100%. There's always the exception to the rule. Anything worth building takes time. So whatever you decide to go out and do and pursue, you gotta believe it in your heart. You gotta have a passion, a burning desire, as Napoleon Hill, author of Think and Grow Rich, buy the book, go read it, it's an old book, it's awesome. He talks about that. What is that thing that you can obsess about, that one thing that you're just on fire about, right? Find that and pursue it, but understand that it's going to take time.
All right, so now you started a new venture where you are actually coaching people, helping people out.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if you haven't been noticing, Hollywood is changing, right? There was the actor strike last year. The writer strike put a lot of us out of work. No content, no actors to create content, no work for us to mix, right? So I took the opportunity to say, hey, I actually really like helping people develop. And it just started by posting encouraging things online. And people started messaging me and saying, hey, thank you. Like, what you're putting out there it's encouraging to me, it's inspiring to me. Like, I would love to work for you one day. Like, you're the boss I'd want to have. Different things like that. And so I saw an opportunity to start. And first of all, it was a limited belief. I never thought that I would be able to do like coaching or, one-on-one sessions with people. And so it just kind of started as a natural progression. And I discovered that what the downturn gave me was an opportunity to explore some of my other passions. One being teaching, one being encouraging, uplifting. Because when I first started, I didn't have someone say, hey, I don't know about that. This is what I would try doing. Oh, okay, you're discouraged, no problem. Well, have you thought about this? Have you tried this? Someone along the way to sort of guide you. Not a guru or anything like that, but just someone to guide you. And given that I've been doing this for 16 years now, according to Malcolm Gladwell, who's an author, I'm an expert. You spend 10,000 hours doing something, you're considered an expert, right? So it's been a journey, but I love doing it now as I recently had an in-person masterclass, and, people came and, got to see how two people mix a TV show. We talked about career stuff, things like that. And, learning will never go out of style because it's going to help you grow. And I'm learning. I'm still learning, and I will be learning, God willing, for another 20 years if I'm still doing this stuff. So, yeah.
Very cool. So you're available.
I'm available. Yeah. No, all jokes aside, I created a site. It's called masteringpostproductionsound.com. You can go check it out, bookmark it, right? But literally, if you just go there, masteringpostproductionsound.com/insider's guide, it's a free guide. You can download, goes right into your email, and it's breaking down these 5 core principles of curiosity, hard work, credibility, persistence, relationships.
And by the way, this is not just for people who want to go into post-production, right? So let's just clear that up.
Transpose that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to be a music, legal business person, in law. I want to do music editing or supervising. The same thing applies to being a musician. These are principles
Core
that
principles.
supersede, correct, core principles that supersede just post-production sound. Just replace it with whatever industry you're in.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's open it up for some questions.
Yeah, thanks for listening, by the way.
Yeah.
One thing I was wondering, because I know when you first started off, you were really really going for it.
Yeah.
But something that I've been wondering a lot lately is, as someone who wants to stay in Southern California, and I'd love to work down here and work out in Hollywood area, how would you recommend as far as like financially making it out here? Because it's so expensive. The cost of living is crazy, and when you have a solid job, like that's great. There's some support there, but when you're starting off, it can be a little scary. And especially, I'm a senior, so I'm getting close to that. Like, I have to start thinking about these things. So what would you recommend?
Well, number one, you got to have a roadmap. You got to know where you're going, right? You got to know what you want to do, where you want to do it. And if it's here in LA, then you got to come up with another plan, right? And I think the biggest thing that we don't talk a lot about are finances. It is like, how do we do that? I mean, I was freelancing, with the baby, on the way. We have, we're fortunate. We have four beautiful babies. Not babies, they're big now. But 4 kids. And we've been fortunate. My wife, God bless her, she's just been passionate about being a mom, and for 16 years she's been able to be home, and that's not very common these days. But what I would say is you got to be frugal. You got to understand that a budget is your friend, because especially when you're not certain what's going to come in each month, you got to get really good at budgeting that and figuring out, okay, what is my baseline? What do I need? And guess what? If I can't get that dream job right away, I may have to do a couple other things on the side until I get that. Does that mean you give up on your dream? By no means. No, absolutely not. But you got to take care of the 4 walls. You got to pay your rent. You got to pay your electric and your water and your food, right? And transportation. As long as those things are covered, everything else, the bills, they'll take care of themselves eventually when you get some more money. So sometimes you're just going to have to supplement for a little bit, and that's going to be some hustling. Maybe you pick up a side gig doing this while you're getting to that destination. And again, talking about destinations, remember that as you go and you pursue your careers, life is going to totally change on you. It's going to throw you a curveball, right? I never thought, coming out of from this room, I never thought I would be doing what I do. So keep your minds open. Keep your minds open. And it's not about the end goal, right? It's really about who you become in the process. Because it's going to teach you a lot about who you are as a person. What do you rely on? What do you depend on? If you're going here, chances are that you have a relationship with God, with a higher power, right? So leaning on your faith during that too. I hope that answered the question. I don't know if that helpful. Yeah.
Back there?
Do you have any time for hobbies outside of music?
Oh yeah, I love baseball. And I had 4 kids, so I went and coached and did all the things. That was my hobby. But speaking of hobbies, it's a really great thing to have. I also think it's really great to have some kind of routine. One of the biggest things in your journeys, I don't want you to underestimate the power of taking care of yourself. All the selves. So we're talking about your mental, your emotional well-being, your physical, and your spiritual well-being. Because here's the thing. One thing I've learned, it's taken me a long while to learn this. If I am taking care of my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual self, guess what? I can show up as a better creative. If I'm burning it on both ends, when I show up to that mix with my director and I'm pissed off and I got all this stress going on and I'm not taking, I got lower back issues, because I sit all the time. But it's if I'm not doing my walking, guess what? I'm not preoccupied with the pain I'm having. If I'm having relationship issues, because I'm not handling that part of my life, I'm bringing that in. So take care of yourself. You get permission to do that, You don't have to ask them, can I go to therapy, or can I go take a walk? No, do it. You should be doing that. Yeah. I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
I think it's interesting how in college you were composing and then also trying to be a studio musician, and then you're also doing post-production.
Yeah.
do you feel like you still get the same amount of creativity in post-production?
100%. 100%. I do. Do I miss playing? Yeah, I miss playing. I miss playing so much, right? There's that I have my horns. So every once in a
You
while,
haven't sold them.
I haven't sold them yet. So every once in a while, I'll bust out the flute or the clarinet to play for my kids. But it's one of my goals is to get playing again. But it's still the art of being creative, and I think creativity is in all of us. And so it's just a different form of that, expressing that creativity. The dream, I think, before I got into post, like, I'm going to be the next John Williams, I'm going to compose. But God had a different plan for me. And I always tell people that post sound fell in my lap. It fell in my lap. And that's what I mean. You got to keep your mind open to the possibilities, because you have no idea what doors are going to be open. This right here is giving you a foundation. Take it, learn from it, make friends. These people these could be your future bosses or your future collaborators or future business partners, right? Stay close and be open, to have those relationships as you move forward.
I preach that every day, but it's nice to hear from somebody else. I'll pay you later.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
What is the most valuable lesson you have learned in your career?
The most valuable, that's a pretty big question. Well, I think I've taken time to think about that, and I go back to those 5 core principles. Like, those are everything in not only my life, but my career, because those are principles that supersede just an industry thing. Like, imagine staying curious in life. Like, ask questions. Don't just take it for book value, because so-and-so said. Go out there. If you disagree with that, go find the answer, But understand that you must work hard in all you do. Like, working hard is not just a post-sound thing. Working hard is a life thing. You want to be a good parent. You want to be a good husband, a good son or daughter. Like, it's going to require some effort on your behalf, right? So that's going to translate to our profession, And then understand that wherever you are in whatever space, that credibility thing comes into play. Like, earn the trust of other people by saying, hey, I'm going to be where I'm at, where I'm supposed to be when I say, like, the whole showing up, early, like on time's late, late is fired kind of thing. And then also understanding that anything in life is going to take time. Sometimes I think about, like, where I've been, where I've come from. Everything has happened in my life exactly the way it's supposed to happen. Oftentimes, though, we're not willing to accept it as that. So accepting that, hey, I'm exactly in the place I need to be in this current moment. And if I'm believing that, God is in my life, then He's watching that and knowing that, hey, everything is happening the right way. And then, of course, the relationship. So it's hard to say one thing, but I do know that in this time, those 5 things are the things that have kind of opened my eyes. Like, wow, that is what I've been learning my whole life, and I wish I knew that back then, But it's taken me this whole time to realize that.
Right. Anybody else?
Good question.
Yeah.
How do you manage a different projects? Because I know you've been hustling a few times. And how do you manage that different projects?
Well, nowadays I don't have to manage as many. It doesn't mean that things don't get busy, because when you're in it, you're in it in the long hours, But I think as far as like a work-life balance, I think it's important to, depending on who you listen to online, right? Some people will say there's no such thing as work-life balance, or just hustle, hustle, hustle. You listen to Alex Hormozy or something, they're gonna be like, you need to be working all the time. I think you need to do what works for you. Like, I think it goes back to making sure you're taking care of your mental, emotional, spiritual, well-being. You gotta take care, because again, you're gonna be, if you spend way too much time hustling and then you neglect your relationships, right? You're gonna feel the impact of that, right away. So you have to remind yourself, even if you set a schedule, like, hey, for this 1 hour of the day, if you're doing what you want to do, you're freelancing, doing whatever, but you need to work on lead generation, like how to get more clients, how to do it. set aside an hour to do that, you know, but then set aside to go out there and touch some grass and get out in nature, do things like that. So just explore, you know, what works for you. Yep.
Do you have a website for your coaching?
Yes. So if you go to the Mastering Post-Production Sound, there's a tab up there, but it's just Mastering Post-Production. Yeah, masteringpostproductionsound.com/coaching. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So going back to that balance thing,
Yeah.
something that I think gets misunderstood, at least from what I gather from speaking to some of you, is that you think that balance is like a constant thing, like you're like right now I have to be doing all of the things at once. Like that can become really overwhelming.
100%.
You know, so sometimes balance is in seasons.
Yes.
So this season I'm gonna focus hard on this thing.
100%.
And then I'm going to balance it out with the next season being more easy on myself. And sometimes just life leads you to those balance things.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be like overwhelming, where like you're trying to be this perfect person that's fully balanced, and I'm taking care of absolutely everything at once, and I'm a health person, and I'm also this person. I'm like, look, focus on what's at hand right now. Take care of that.
That's good.
So that then you can move on to the next thing, right?
That's good.
So that's a thing that I think is sometimes not overlooked. For some creative people, a balanced day might be different than for somebody who likes to do an hour of this, an hour of this, you know, who stacks things up in a whole day, and you're trying to do 50 different things in one day. Sometimes for creative people, it's like, today I'm just going to focus on this piece of work or whatever, right? And it's hard to do when you have classes in between all that, but later on in life, you'll realize that sometimes it might be a day thing. So this day is for this, day is this for this, you know, family days for that, that kind of thing. So you balance it in different ways, you know? So keep that in mind, that it's not necessarily like you're constantly trying to do absolutely everything all at once so that it's all perfectly balanced. Like, no, that's not how balance works. Balance works in sways, right? Like it's sometimes a little bit more this way, sometimes a little more that way. So
I think about the phrase being present, like being present in the moment, whatever it's going to be. Like, because you said it right, you know, it comes in seasons. There are seasons where my family knows, okay, we're in TV season, and it's hustle. It's like I'm gone.
They're not going to see you.
They're not going to see me. I won't see my youngest because he'll be in bed by the time I get home. You know, but you know, Dad's out there, going to work, creating something, bringing something home to eat. You know, earning that money. And then there's going to be other seasons when, like you said, it's hey, okay. It doesn't, you can turn it off. Go and be at the beach. Go be with the family. Go connect, or go be with friends or whatever. So,
and even in those times, like some people are so hardcore. And I think Matt, our first speaker, was talking about that. How sometimes maybe you are doing family stuff, and but if an important phone call comes in, you're gonna take it, right? Like if the guy who hires you to do stuff.
Right.
I mean, and you go, hey guys, hold on one second, and you go and you take the call, and you shouldn't feel shame for that. No, you're still, balancing the whole thing out as a whole, and you don't have to have these really strict, hard line. At least it's my feeling about it. Yeah. You don't have to have these tied down restrictions. Like this is only this, and this like you can be a little flexible, because ultimately it's your life, and you have to make those calls sometimes. But sometimes if I'm getting emails about an assignment at midnight on a Sunday, I might choose to ignore that. Okay?
Right.
So it just depends, and just take it as it comes, and be aware that the balance comes in the big picture. You have to pull out, zoom out, look at the whole thing, and see how you're doing there. Take a look at it from afar. Don't try to find balance when you're in the weeds in the one thing. Pull out, look at the whole thing, and then make a decision on what you need to focus on, maybe a little bit more. Anybody else? Anything else? No? One last one.
I was mostly talking about, balancing out certain projects.
Yeah.
Time management skills and all that.
Yep. How do you
how to do it?
Yeah, how do you deal with it? Do you have let me ask, do you have like a schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I have a calendar, and I try to make sure certain days are these days and certain days are that days. It depends. Like if I'm on a show or if I'm on a film, then I'm pretty much going to be booked up just for that. So it's going to be a little difficult to do some coaching calls or record something on the YouTube channel or whatever. I'll have to adjust those days, So yeah, I think it's just whatever works for you, whatever system works for you. Some people like to use Post-its or use an actual, write it down in a calendar, you know, or just on a piece of paper. That's one thing that I know has been helpful. It's like if I go to bed and I think about my day ahead the next day, I can then put on paper, like, what are the most important things I have to get done? And then on those days, I know I wake up with a plan, and I know, okay, I'm not mixing today, so I have this, and that, and I tackle those things. So it's just whatever works for you. You know, there'll be trial and error, I think. Yeah.
Very cool. Anybody else? Anything? No?
Going on.
Oh,
Going
one.
on.
So you were doing stack stuff and composition before this post-sound volunteer lab.
Yeah.
So when you looked around at like all the other people also doing those things, was it hard not to compare yourself to them? And then maybe as you were starting to get into like, oh, you kind of found your thing
Yeah.
with post, was it still hard to look at other people who maybe spent more of their time doing other aspects of your talent?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for my experience, there weren't, when I was going the post-sound way, there weren't a lot of people, a lot of my peers doing that, right? So I didn't really have anybody to like talk to or get advice from. I will say that like as I grew up in the industry, I think one of the things I had to learn, and I would encourage you to do too, is to not compare yourself to other people. I'm of the belief that you have no competition. And I say that because you are uniquely you. I cannot do what Butte does. Okay? And you know what? He can't do what I do because he doesn't have my experiences, my personal experiences, the things I've gone through, and I don't have his. So when I say that, you don't have any competition. If you embrace that, you now eliminate that need and that pressure that you're putting on yourself, especially via social media. So if you embrace that you are uniquely designed for a purpose in this world, now you have no competition. Who cares if so-and-so's doing the same thing that you're doing? They're not going to be able to do it the way you do it because they are not you. There's only one you, and it's up to you if you're going to step into that. So I don't know if that's helpful or kind of gets you in the right direction. I wish I knew that earlier because that I learned later in life, and that's powerful. Yep.
What's your favorite trick to making Foley sound? Like, what's the coolest thing you've been like, oh, that's something.
Oh, interesting. Well, it depends. Because I'm not a Foley artist. I rely on the people on my crews to do that. You'd be surprised, like, what kind of. Here's a cool one. One way that they emulate grass, an artist, is they actually take old analog tape, like 1/4 inch, like Nagra tape, and it's all there, and you like cassette tape, if you think about it, you know, think maybe better terms for you. You take the cassette tape and they use that as grass, and it gives you that kind of that feeling, and gives, you know, of like, oh, they're on grass. So they'll use that all the time. But a lot of stuff is real rural dyes too. You know, it's like if it's a hinge, they'll find a hinge. But it's the most you can with Foley. You can take, and I know that I can take almost anything and make it sound like the way I want. Like, it doesn't have to be the right thing. You'll be a lot of surprised at how many things you see on film or on TV that are not that. At the same time, it's a combination of hard effects, like from a library, and Foley artists too. So yeah, they're magicians, Foley artists. So they're really great.
Do you get to hire these people? Are you at that point?
That's a good question. Yes and no. There are some projects where I just come in as the mixer, and the post supervisor has already hired everybody, right? And so I'll do that. With this show that's going to be premiering in the fall, Interior Chinatown, or November, I was like, we're having this person. Yeah. So that's because I was supervising the show. So I was supervising and mixing it. So I did have say.
Does that happen often where the supervisor is also the mixer?
Not a lot, no. No, very rarely. Because in TV, it's very busy. Mm-hmm. Because you'll be mixing an episode, but at the same time, you'll need to be on the stage getting an artist's getting the actors re-recorded ADR for the next episode. So in that case, I had a team. So when I couldn't do that, I had somebody go cover that. But if you're doing film stuff, it's a lot easier because you do all that stuff prior to your final mix, to your pre-dubs. That's taken care of, everything's ready, and you can work on that for several months, and then you go in for the mix for a month or two, So
Would you say that the film stuff is a little bit more, you have more freedom or more time?
You have
I
more
guess?
time. You have more time because generally you have more budget. You have a
Right.
higher budget. TV shows are done on a smaller budget, and you get less time. For an hour episode of your favorite TV show, we're getting 3 days, 3 to 5 days. Like right now there's a series on Netflix that we did called Heels. It's about wrestlers, right? Go check it out. It's really good. We got 5 days to do that, right? And so you get 5 days to do this hour-long show, but for a film, you're gonna get 5 weeks maybe to do that because they have more money. So you get more precious. You get to really dial it in. TV, you gotta fly, and then you have time. You go back and work on the problems, and wherever the red flags are, and you just do the best you can with the time you have.
So here's a financial question as far as film versus TV.
Yeah.
Are the rates the same?
No, the rates are not the same. And I'll also say that we don't make the same, how would I better put this? There is I'm in the union, okay? So I'm a union mixer. I am protected by the union. I am, by our laws and everything and contracts, I have to make a certain amount of money. And I think for a mixer, hourly rate is, I think it's like $82 an hour right now, right? They cannot pay me less than that, right? After that, it's up to you. You
Your
can negotiate.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that I've never made scale. I've always made, even when I first started, I made above scale. It's just, who you are and who you can negotiate, with. So, for film, yes. Film is generally a higher rate than TV, but everything's negotiable. Everything. I always say you want to have 2 of these 3 things when considering any gig, right? And this could be for,
Music
I think everything,
or-
the people, the money, or the project. If it has awesome people that you want to work with and it's a great project, who cares if there's not enough money? Take whatever they have, right? But if it's a crappy project and they're terrible people to work with, but they're saying, well, we'll pay you a lot of money, I would pass. This is my personal, way to do it. But if you have 2 of the 3, because it could be a really, a difficult client to work with, but they're paying you really well, and the project, God, that would be really great to be part of, or have on your resume or whatever, right? Then consider doing it, So yes, there are different rates, and my job as a mixer, re-record mixer, is per union rates, the highest rate. Everybody else, a sound editor, a sound mix, Foley artist, they all make lower as far as the union rate goes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Have you ever basically not taken union scale or not
Yes.
going low to be a part of great projects for free?
Yes. So 2018 or something, it was like December, and Hollywood notoriously kind of shuts down for the holidays, right? Executives, they leave, directors, they leave for the holidays. There was this really cool film. It was a director from Kuwait or something in the Middle East. He had a really cool film that looked beautiful, and they needed some mixers to mix it. And they're just like, they don't have a lot of money. They can only pay you scale, which would be well below what I was making anyways. And they asked us, and I'm like, well, you have an option. I could stay home for 2 weeks and not do anything, or I can go out and make a little bit of money and be part of an awesome project with great people. And I did that, and we had a great time, and it was a really cool film and a great experience to hear about what it's like in the Middle East, and the movie did really well overseas, and so it was just good to be part of. So yes, there are absolutely instances where that happened. Not to mention when you hook up with your friends who say, hey man, I'm just doing this spec thing for a feature, I got no money, dude, I got you, no problem. Because you've made those relationships with people, and you're their sound person, you know? So, yeah, absolutely.
Andy.
How would you know? How would you negotiate with for like the budget?
Well, I don't personally negotiate for the budget of the overall project,
For your,
but for my rate, you know, it usually always starts with a conversation. You know, either they're gonna wanna know what your rate is, or they're gonna say, hey, we have this much, right? And, go ahead, you were
yeah,
saying.
no, I was gonna say, usually it's, nobody wants to reveal their cards, you know, it's like if you're playing poker.
It's a game, yeah.
It's a little game, so you're like, look, so I usually start with, my normal rate is this, but I'm
Yes.
happy to work with you,
Yeah.
you know, if you
Yeah.
have something.
Yeah.
So let me know what you have.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, yeah.
It's there's a go back and forth a little bit. You know, I was negotiating for a film I did this last year, and hey, you know, well, what do we got? You know, this is kind of the rate I would be going. Oh, we don't have. Well, okay, and I knew they would do that because
Right.
they always do that. They don't always want to get less than they're willing to. So I went higher. And knowing that, that's going to be too much. Well, what do you have in mind? This number, oh, that's not going to work. I'm sorry, but I would be willing to, give you the friends and family discount for, whatever, the lower rate. Okay, no problem. We met there. And so there is going to be a little bit of push and pull. One real easy trick, if you want to get out of somebody you don't want to work with anymore, just double your rate. They'll be like, oh, we can't afford you. Yeah, sorry, that's my rate. But you never know. You want to make money, double your rate. You'd be surprised. Your clients are out there. People are willing to pay for your skill set. You just have to work a little harder to find those kind of people.
All right. Yeah.
Does everyone in post-production mostly work as an independent contractor?
Good question. I would say these days more so that is the becoming the norm. There used to be, in the heyday of feature film mixing, you would have mixers who were on like $1 million retainers for the whole year, and so they would mix everything, because they were getting paid a lot of money. Well, that was years ago, ages ago, and that's no longer the case. So nowadays, like I'm a freelancer. I go wherever. I've mixed in New York, Warner Brothers, Sony, small boutiques, all over the place, wherever the work is. You'll find a lot of that there. And also, as a business owner, there's a lot more tax advantages for me being an independent. I have been a W-2 person too, where I only worked exclusively at one place. I think if you can get that and it works for you, it's a really great option for people, But
It's rare now.
It is rare now to just be like, you really have to be the cream of the crop, and basically, honestly, you have to have a client base that you're bringing into there. Because if you're working with, James Mangold and Steven Spielberg all the time, those are your clients. Those mixers, like I know those guys, they'll go wherever they want because they're going to say, hey, we know they're going to mix here. Like what's his name? Chris Nolan, he loved mixing at Warner Brothers, Even though this Oppenheimer was done through Universal, he still said, no, I'm going to mix at Warner Brothers because those are his rooms, those are his guys, So,
All right.
Last, how often do NDAs come into your?
yeah, it's a thing. I'll be honest, like I haven't signed an NDA for a very, very long time. So, but depending on what you work on and levels, because again, there's a trust there, but also the facilities we work with go through extreme security measures. So they usually can't work on those things without certain things and, blockers and things like that, because there have been, issues there and leaks and stuff in the past. Yeah.
Yeah. I sign NDAs on every single contract that I work on.
There you go.
So,
There you go.
and that's just a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but usually what it really ends up meaning is that you just don't talk about it until it's out.
Until it's out.
That's essentially
That's exactly
what you end up,
exactly.
if you're trying to go by nobody is looking at every single line of the contract, really. Just to be honest with you. No one is. No one is. I mean, it's so much,
It's
right?
a lot.
And you're just
It's a
filling
lot,
out your
yeah.
paperwork. Here's the NDA, okay, sign it, look at it, make sure that's basic stuff. I mean, I've been on shoots where sometimes somebody will not want to sign the NDA, so then they just shoot around them,
Yeah.
or say, okay, at this point we're going to shoot this side, okay, I'm out, so the part of the shoot or whatever. So, anyway, yeah, so it's a thing, but we've exceeded our time.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
That's Joel.
This is a lot of fun. I appreciate you. I'll hang out if you have
We'll hang
stuff.
out, yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, man, we did it.
All right.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Mastering Post-Production Sound. Before we go, I want to take a second to thank my good friend Ibut Cervantes and the Azusa Pacific University School of Music for having me out. It was such an honor to spend time with these amazing students and to share a little bit about my story and my journey. If you're feeling inspired and ready to jumpstart your career, I want to personally invite you to apply to work one-on-one with me through my personalized coaching program, Journey Beyond Sound. This program is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges of the post-production sound industry, build your personal brand, and create a lasting career. Head on over to masteringpostproductionsound.com/coaching to learn more and see if this is a good fit for you. Until next time, friend, thank you very much, and I will see you in one of these other videos over here or in next week's episode.